Today, we welcome to the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series Fabrice Jaumont. Fabrice Jaumont is a scholar-practitioner, award-winning author, non-profit leader, and educational advisor based in New York. He currently serves as Education Attaché for the Embassy of France to the United States, a research fellow at Fondation Maison de Sciences de l'Homme in Paris, and an adjunct professor both at New York University and Baruch College. He's president of the Center for the Advancement of Languages, Education, and Communities, a non-profit publishing organization based in New York and Paris. He has published 9 books on education, language, and development. Fabrice Jaumont holds a Ph.D. in Comparative and International Education from New York University in the United States. So, Fabrice, very welcome to the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Emiliano. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. And you've been publishing extensively on the topic of bilingual education, education at large. And I want to ask you a first challenging question as we start this very interesting conversation. What is global citizenship education, and how would you define a global citizen?
Yeah, well, it's a very daunting task to define global citizenship education in front of a master of the field, in front of the world expert that you are. But I mean, I could start
And
defining.
thank you.
Could start
Grazie.
defining what. No, but I mean it. It's impressive. But anyways, let me try to see if I can define what a global citizen is, at least for me, because then we can see if I can define global citizenship education. But I think, like you said, I focus so much on bilingual education and language education throughout my career that for me, a global citizen cannot be a monolingual citizen. It has to be a multilingual citizen of the world. A global citizen is definitely someone who understands and appreciates, the complexity and diversity of cultures and worldviews, but particularly languages. And I think that's how I frame it. Of course, in a sense, a global citizen is someone who has to recognize that he is or she is part of an interconnected world. And again, languages are keys to understanding that part. And there are other things that when I think of global citizen, I also think about my daughters and then their commitment to promoting sustainability, social justice, equality, human rights. It's on a global scale, and so I also see my daughters as global citizens that are engaging in their community, very very actively engaging in their community and demonstrating as well empathy, respect for cultures, respect for one another, respect for languages and linguistic diversity, respect for cultural diversity. And I think that that is that's a responsibility in their action, in their work. So that's how I would frame global as a global citizen, or would say global citizenship education. If you think now of this being a framework for schools and for schooling, then in that case, these are the notion, the values that schools should focus on. Also, I really think a global citizen is capable of thinking critically, and that's another thing in schools. Definitely, schools around the U.S. more and more is this part about being able to think critically about global issues and also communicate. Again, that connects to language. Communicate effectively across cultural boundaries. So that you're able to collaborate with others to address at least common challenges. And being able to address common challenges together is an important part. So that's my framing. I think this is where schools have a big role to play. Just to empower learners around the world, just to be capable of taking an active role in both, at least locally and globally, to
Right.
address those challenges. So again,
Yeah.
trying my best in front of the master here, but this is connecting a lot with what I do, putting language as a center, making sure
Mm,
that first, by speaking your language or someone's language, you start the process
yeah.
of engaging with that person, of respecting that person, of trying to see through that person's eyes. So that the beginning of this is empathy at the beginning, and then definitely this is for a more peaceful world as the ultimate goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, but I'm glad that you're mentioning this connection between the local and the global, because as you know very well, one of the main critique to the notion of global citizenship is that the notion itself would only focus on the global, while I always specify in both my academic publications, discussions, talks, conferences, that one of the merits of global citizenship and global citizenship education is to put back on the table that critical discussion about what's happening in the local and the global, and how individuals can critically address such issues. And so I'm glad that you mentioned the connection between the local and the global. And also I'm glad that you mentioned the linguistic, the language part, because we often discuss here the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series, the cultural part, the sociological part, the political, but the language as it connects to education and also communities. And so these are important elements. And in connection to this discussion, I want to ask you a question related to the important work that you're doing at the Center for the Advancement of Languages, Education, and Community, CLEC. And so how this important work that you're doing at the center connects to notion of global citizenship, and then expand on this discussion on the importance and the connection between language and the fostering of global citizenry.
Yeah, so I founded a nonprofit organization in New York called CALEC, which is Center for the Advancement of Language Education in Communities. But this came as a logical follow up to a book that I wrote, which was called The Bilingual Revolution, which was also the logical follow up of a movement of parents in New York, which started bilingual programs in public schools 15 years ago, and this mushroomed out of New York and then started to develop across several cities in the U.S. and outside of the U.S., whereby parents had the power to change their schools and create bilingual programs or dual language programs, as it's called here,
Yeah.
whereby children would be taught all the subjects in two languages from the beginning, from kindergarten all the way up to high school. And so that was a movement of parents,
What's the
which
main
led to,
goal of teaching two languages at the same time as kids
well,
grow up?
you had two goals. And of course, for many parents in the US, recent immigrants or long-time immigrants, there was an urgency to preserve, to sustain their linguistic heritage. That's one group. And then the other group were monolingual families, mostly English dominant families, who understood the benefits of bilingualism and bilingual education because they wanted their children to live a richer life, basically, and understand the world through two languages, maybe two cultures, and expand their horizon. So you had these two groups of parents working together, trying to create bilingual programs in public schools, which were, fairly monolingual schools in the United States, and that was successful. Many programs were started in Spanish, in Chinese, in French, in Japanese, in New York. I think 15 different languages and linguistic communities created a program like this, and then sometimes several schools followed up. But the idea, and that's the work behind CALEC now, is that you can help parents, you can help communities locally to create programs like these, bilingual programs like these, where all subjects are taught in two languages, 50-50, where in the same classroom, 50% of the students speak one language and 50% speak another language. And they learn from each other, they collaborate, they work together, where teachers are able to either teach the morning is one language, the afternoon is another, or Monday is that language, Tuesday is the other, or work with other teachers and collaborate with other teachers, splitting languages, splitting them. So these are, again, connecting to the topic of global citizenship education. These are programs fostering language education, bilingual education, learning together, learning collaboratively, learning from one another, because you have two linguistic groups, so children teaching each other, but also learning from the teacher who works in two languages. And that collaboration triggers other things. That it's more than languages, it's also understanding other perspectives, understanding and respecting each other, mutual comprehension. Tolerance is another key aspect.
Yeah.
This approach, you're really creating global citizens of the world by giving them an education which is outside of a monolingual worldview, basically. And that, for me, is central to the work that now CALEC does as a nonprofit, a very small and humble nonprofit, but we spread the word and coach parents and teachers around the world, and also with the publishing program that we've developed.
Yeah.
We can encourage voices from all over the world to come up with their experience of bilingual education, multilingualism, and so forth. We even publish books in children's books in 25 languages now, including minority languages in many places, including African languages like Tsitsonga,
Interesting.
African, Setswana, and even Swahili, but also in Ukrainian, also in Hebrew and Arabic, also in as many languages that can create resources for families, for educators, and also engage in this dialogue between languages, between cultures, between communities.
So you're
that's
mentioning children's books as a very interesting project, and indeed, I want to ask you a quick question on this. What is a title that is particularly resonating with with the membership of the center or particular book that you like, and I guess all of them are really valuable. But if you were to mention a title for children, I
It's a,
mean, yeah.
it's a trick question because I know all the authors will be watching.
No, but we know that they are all precious and they are definitely contributing to the common good in valuable ways. Just for our audience, to better understand the important work that you're doing, the important publications that you are advancing.
Yeah. So we
Or
have
if you
two
want to
groups.
mention two or three, that's also fine.
Yeah, we have two main audiences. We have the children's books, and then we have the adults books. So for the adults books, a lot of the books we publish are to engage communities and parents. We have also experts. We have Ellen Bialystok, world famous psychologist who wrote about bilingual children. We have published a book called The Mosaic of Tongues about the place of multilingualism in the Arabic speaking world. We have published a book called A Bilingual Revolution for Africa, which is about multilingual settings and the place of national languages and international languages in schools in Africa, and many more. And then for children, we've published, many books. Some of them are bilinguals, like Marimba, who relates the stories of immigrants from Mexico who are carrying their marimba musical instruments throughout their journey, and that's a bilingual Spanish English book, which is also now Spanish, French, Spanish, Arabic, Spanish, Chinese, and so that's another example. We have other bilingual books where you can learn the language, but most of the books are also available in many languages as monolingual setup. So I would recommend Marimba. I would recommend The Blue Dress, which is a tale about a little girl in South Africa who wears a traditional
Yeah,
blue dress.
very interesting.
And there are many more.
For an
And then
academic, recently I started to develop an interest in writing in a way that is more accessible. So I'd be
yeah,
interested in discussing a potential publication. One of my goals is to really write for children. So because they are our future generations. So we
it's a
definitely
good
should
thing.
discuss.
I mean, I know it's a good thing that you're thinking like this. I hope you do and publish the books. I really think that we need to start with our younger citizen, our
Absolutely.
younger global citizen. We need to be able to read stories to them that are meaningful and also represent our cultures and our identities. And also the fact that we're reading to them as parents or as teachers, it's
Absolutely.
essential. So I encourage you. I encourage all your
Let's
viewers
discuss
and
it. Let's
followers to do
discuss it.
this.
Absolutely. After this video interview. Then, in relation to this very interesting discussion, I want to ask you a more personal question. And this is always an interesting part of my conversations with scholars, practitioners, administrators, senior manager in educational institutions. Um, what is how the notion of multilingualism and the global citizenship, bilingual education relates to your personal life journey?
Yeah. Uh, well, I've been a French. I'm a French citizen, but I've been a French citizen who has lived almost his entire life outside of France. I went to school in France, but I left uh, during my college years, and then started to live outside of France. And I've been in New York for 25 years now. But I think obviously um, the voyage, the journey started with the need to see the world, to understand the world, to speak other languages, and I owe it to my English teacher in the sixth grade, who gave me an interest for languages and then also for English, and then triggered this curiosity in me. So again, teachers play a very, very important role in giving this kind of passion, triggering this kind of passion into our children's mind. For me, this is how it began, and I loved going that way, leaving my country, living outside, to be a better citizen of my country, but abroad, basically. I always explain in my talks that I've learned more about myself and my country and my language being outside of it than when I was there. So it's something to think about, again, in light of what a global citizenship education is like. You can definitely there are certain qualities that could define what a global citizen is, and I think by equipping students with the skills and the mindset
And the values.
and the values, even if you're not in your country anymore, but you can help them become active participants, and that's how I feel I've been an active participant in my communities, plural, because you have more than one community basically, and that's how you tackle global challenges with a sense of purpose and compassion, and so to answer that question, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's influenced my work a lot, and I started writing about this. I've published many books, many articles, and now I even created a publishing organization that will help others do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So again,
And
the teachers are here to stay. I know we talk a lot about AI these days, and I think AI will never replace what teachers can do and their impact on children, giving them the inspiration
human to
and
human relationships.
the,
Absolutely. And before you mentioned about core principles of global citizenship education, we will get to this final question in a moment. But before that, I want to ask you if you could share insights into your forthcoming projects, whether with CALEC or in general, because this
yeah,
is, of course, of interest to
yeah.
our audience here.
There's a couple of things that I'm working on right now with CALEC and with other authors. First, there's a platform, an online platform, which CALEC is developing. It is called Read in Two Languages. And all the books that I mentioned earlier, we're putting them on an online platform so that we can give schools, particularly underserved schools, we can give them access to the books, to the read alouds, to the activities, even the ability to record videos or read alouds themselves. So this is one of the biggest and most challenging projects for us. Try to reach out to the world with a biliteracy platform, which will again share those values that we talked about and give access to resources for teachers, and definitely encourage reading in two languages or more, and understanding each other. So that's one major project for us. And then the second, again, we're publishing books every year. I work on a new book, and there are two books right now that I'm working on. One is called Speaking the World, and it is about multilingualism and cultural fluency in the professional world.
Speaking the word.
Speaking the world, yes, and this connects to your discussion as well. But I've just started a new call for papers called Bridging Worlds, and you'll see the connections again. And this one
Absolutely.
about heritage, languages, and social cohesion. So these projects they aim, to explore the profound impact of multilingualism, particularly on professional and personal lives,
Yeah.
and also it explores how heritage languages can foster social cohesion in diverse societies. So through these books, my hope is that we can also provide valuable insights, some guidance for educators, for policymakers, and global citizens committed to fostering a more interconnected and understanding world, basically. So, and of
Yeah,
course, I
one
will
of the
continue.
challenges of this notion of global citizenship is actually to translate theory into action, into practice. And so
I
I'm
agree.
really pleased to learn from you that you're working on these projects that resonate with the notion of global citizenship, particularly when it comes to social cohesion. Now, a final challenging question. And the question is, could you provide a brief definition of global citizenship education using three keywords and then explain why these three keywords?
Thank you. Yes, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I chose three words, and then I've talked about them a little bit already, but I chose empathy, responsibility, and collaboration, and I'll explain why, basically. And I think empathy is at the heart of global citizenship education for me. It involves understanding and sharing the feelings of others. And I think this is essential
Yeah.
for appreciating different perspectives and also fostering inclusive communities. And I think that empathy enables individuals to connect with people from diverse backgrounds and promoting mutual respect and understanding. So that is for me um, number one on my list. Uh, and then the second is responsibility. Um, and I mentioned my daughters and how they are at schools, after schools, etc. But I think responsibility for them, it's this commitment to act ethically and to contribute to their communities and to their schools and to their world. It involves recognizing the impact of their actions on others, on the environment, and also taking steps, proactive steps to address those challenges. So particularly to address global challenges such as inequality, climate change, human rights violations, and so forth. So that's the responsibility part, and then the collaboration part. I really think, and then going back to schools, teachers, students learning together collaboratively. I really think that collaboration emphasizes the importance of working together to solve the global problems, particularly in an interconnected and multilingual world. I think there are no single individual or nation can address complex issues alone, and I really think that uh, it's all about teamwork, communicating and then pooling the resources and ideas from each other, and then leading to creating innovative solutions to really support and make our communities more resilient and stronger. So for me, again, collaboration. It can begin at school. It can begin in the classroom. It can begin with a dual language program where you have to work together to learn each other's language, and then you build on that. So these are
Absolutely.
the key words that I would.
So we have empathy, responsibility, and collaboration as the
Yeah.
three key words for global citizenship education. Thank you very much, Fabrice Jaumont. Pleasure to have you here with us at the Global Citizenship Education Interview Series.
Thank you.
Thank you for the important work you're doing with the Center for the Advancement of Languages, Education, and Communities, CALEC. All the important you're doing at the same time with your publications for children and adults. And thank you very much. A really interesting conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you, and continue the good work.